Okay, here we are. Alt.nerd.obsessive. Worst episode ever.
Hey everybody, welcome to Worst Episode Ever, a podcast for people who love The Simpsons by people who love The Simpsons about how much we hate The Simpsons. We are here trying to find which is the worst episode ever, and as always, my name is Dan.
And as always, my name is Jack.
And we're back again with another episode for you. Even after last week's episode, we decided we'll do another one. And today we're going to be watching a Season 12 episode called Simpson Safari. Originally aired April 1st, 2001, but this is no joke, my friends.
No, it was
this really
unfortunately
aired.
an actual episode.
Have you seen this one, Jack?
I have. I don't really remember too many specifics. I know it's a Simpsons Goes To episode. They go to Africa.
Yes, I'm in the same boat. I probably saw it when it first aired, maybe once or twice since.
Yeah, sounds
but not
about right.
not in the past 10 years, easy. Because we're old, and this is life now, and we're falling apart. So yeah, The Simpsons Go to Africa. If you haven't watched this episode yet, you can do that on simpsonsworld.com, unless you are not in the United States, in which case you can do something else.
I mean, if you're in Africa, I suppose you could just go on a safari and imagine that
That's right.
you're a Simpson.
What would it have looked like if The Simpsons joined me on this safari? Probably better than this episode. So yeah, watch it on Simpsons World. You can probably buy it on Amazon. If you do that, you can click through our website, wepodcast.com, click through the Amazon links there, and you can buy the episode through Amazon. That'll be fun.
That helps us out.
Yeah, you can watch it and rewatch it. You can listen to this podcast and watch it again, and listen to the podcast again, and
I'm sure
watch it again.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
That's
all
what
the
everyone
time.
does.
All the time in the world to do all of those things.
if you're listening to this, if this is a priority for you. No, we love our listeners. I'm sorry. Cut all that. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back. We have a guest with us today, and we're going to watch Simpson Safari.
See you soon.
Hello, Simpsons. Welcome to Africa. I am your guide, Kitenge. Hey, how you
Hi, what's going on? Isn't that cute? A bush baby.
Where? Shoo. Oh, man, I just bought this shirt.
So that was Simpsons Safari.
It sure was, Jack.
The Simpsons Go to Africa. Before we get into the nitty gritty, we have a guest we'd like to introduce, Mr. Nick Noga. How's it going, Nick? They can't see your thumbs up. Audio podcast only. For you diehard listeners, Nick was our very first guest way back in episode 5 and 6.
That was the first one?
You were.
Yeah, first 4 were solo
We were a
projects.
little baby podcast. Oh, a little baby.
And just so you know, the show has changed quite a bit since you've last been on, and I assume you haven't listened to any of the episodes in between.
Hey.
Seems like a good assumption, okay?
So, just if we break out into some weird characters, just be
I'll
prepared.
roll with it.
Nick was on.
Rolling is something I do.
Is that it?
Yep, that was it.
You just make dumb voices?
That's pretty much what the show's devolved into.
What if we change it from talking about The Simpsons to just talking funny?
Okay, Nick, let's do it. Don't forget to bring a helmet.
In case you like Simpsons and like hearing that strange people just make stupid
There's
voices.
like 12 people
Yeah,
out there
there's
who
a-
like
there's a-
both of those.
There's a big cross section, and we're getting them.
You know what would make the show better? Strange voices.
It wasn't really a planned out thing.
It kind of just evolves that way.
Happened.
Yeah. Now there's a whole storyline thing.
So with that out of the way, although what I was going to say was, so if you want to know what Nick Simpson's profile is, go listen back to that.
Episode 5, Chance of Hard 20.
Yeah, but long story short, Nick, you like the older seasons better. You kind of checked out after season 7. You checked out even a little earlier than most 90s fans.
I watched it all through season 9. 9 was the last time I watched a season all the way through when it aired live.
But you're not crazy about season 8.
No.
All right.
I mean, I'll watch it and I'll laugh. But I used to... after going back and rewatching, I noticed that season 7 is the point where it is less funny than the season before it. That had never happened before.
Season 6 for you is where it was at its peak.
5 and 6, I think, are equally good.
Okay. Yeah. And also, if you want to hear Nick's opinions on Harry Shearer leaving the podcast and Superman Returns, he was also our guest on our special Wii edition. From a few weeks back. So check that out. So let's talk about the show proper, Simpson Safari. The Simpsons go to Africa.
Let's do it.
It starts off with the Homer and the kids are at a Costco type place called Cosmo, or Cosmo, I guess. Basically Homer prods the bag boys until they decide to go on strike, which somehow leads to a food shortage. Everybody in Springfield is starving. Homer finds a box of animal crackers in his childhood lunchbox. That's the only food left in the house. And that's where he finds a free trip to Africa. So they go to Africa after a couple other scenes. And it's one of basically your Simpsons goes to episodes where they hit all the biggest landmarks you would think of when you think of the location, in this case Africa. And then there's a very weak plot regarding poachers, sort of. It turns out that they were Greenpeace.
Oh, there's some twists. Well, you just gave twist away, so.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Were you going to say tweaks and then you said twist?
Maybe.
That should be a character. That could be a character.
Tweaks and twists?
Old Tweaky the Twist.
It's me, old Tweaky the Twist. It sounds like another character. Never mind.
That's famous.
Twist is not an occupation.
I do twists.
Give me a twist on the double.
Here he is.
Oh, not tweak. He can't twist.
Old Tweak and old Twist.
They never get along.
Mixing them up.
They never get along.
They're like oil and water.
Anyway, so they meet a Jane Goodall type. What's the other one? There's two monkey scientists, right?
No.
No, there's the gorilla one.
Yeah.
That
Jane
one, the one
Goodall
that's
and,
what was that movie with Sigourney
Gorillas in the
Weaver?
Mist.
She was
Who did she
Jane
play?
Goodall, right?
No, Jane Goodall was Chimps.
Oh.
It was Diane
Fossey. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those. So I guess she's one of those or both. I don't know. But
Nobody ever studied orangutan.
famous scientists.
Nobody gives a shit about that.
Nope. No, we do not.
We don't like ginger monkeys.
Oh.
Don't get me started about gibbons.
Didn't Paul Giamatti play an orangutan in that terrible Planet of the Apes movie? The 2001 one?
Yeah. I
That
think
came
he did.
out right around when this episode came out, actually.
I mean, he played a evolved orangutan alien species. He didn't play like just a straight up orangutan.
I would pay to see
That's a
that,
waste
though.
of Giamatti.
Is it? He would kill it.
He was
I'm
no
a fucking orangutan.
Dr. Zayas.
So we forgot to do this at the top of the show. Let's just do it real quick. Somebody suggest. Actually, this was one of the most.
Yeah, this is our most suggested episode.
So-
We got Dan Dennis, Dan Variano, Natalie Martin, the Nothing Important podcast, and George Martin Fell Brown.
Yeah, and
All
probably
requested this
others,
one.
so-
and probably others.
So thank you guys for suggesting this. A lot of people consider this one of the worst episodes ever of The Simpsons. I think those people are the types of people who probably gave up right around season 12.
Yeah.
And don't realize how much worse the show, how different the show has become from. This episode still in some ways resembles classic Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean, definitely season 12. I remember when we first
Yeah.
watched this episode way back when it aired.
Compared to the classics,
You could
90s,
tell
it's
it
not
was-
a good episode. But,
Yeah, it was on its way down.
Right, but it still resembles the show, and
Act 1, when they're in the Cosmo, that felt like
Yeah,
season
there was
8.
some very classic
good stuff.
type humor in it. So we should talk about who wrote this episode.
Yeah, so
'cause
this
that's
episode-
probably got a lot to do with it.
It was written by John Swartzwelder, who is a very notable Simpsons writer. It was not really. He stopped writing for the show in season 15, so this is season 12, so he's getting towards the end of his run. And there's definitely a lot of Swartzwelder type things in here.
definitely.
And there were real laughs. Like I had a couple big laughs.
Especially in the beginning, like
Yeah,
you said,
so-
especially.
Let's just talk about the beginning scene.
so
We're at Costmo.
They're at Cosmo, which don't they have? Doesn't Springfield already have a Costco type
Yeah,
place?
Monster Mart.
Monster
Mart.
Mart. So I was surprised they didn't use Monster Mart again. Why? I mean, I guess they wanted to get that joke in Costco, Cosmo.
And what a joke it was.
But
it was
would-
worth it.
I don't know. It would have been fun to go back. I don't know. I feel like there's gags to be had with those giant food, like the giant Mrs. Butterworths. And,
Yeah. I guess they just needed a random grocery store
Yeah.
that wasn't the Quickie Mart.
So it's Homer doing the food shopping as instead of Marge, and it's very one of those relatable things because I think when we all started going food shopping on our own for the first time, we had the tendency to just go put all the junk food in the
Yeah,
car.
because you're like, my mom never let me eat Cookie Crisp.
Yeah.
I'm going to buy nothing but Cookie Crisp.
Yeah, and they have plenty of that where the kids all want to put junk food in the cart. And
Right.
Homer's reactions is very classic Homer, where he's just like, just put it in the cart. Like, what about this cart?
Yeah.
Like, that to me felt like classic Simpsons. Like, that's stupid Homer in a way where it's not like the new stupid Homer where he's so fucking stupid he doesn't recognize his own daughter like last week,
Yeah.
or doesn't know who Principal Skinner is. Whereas this one, it's just kind of it's more of like a lazy incompetence.
Not only does he not care what they buy at the grocery store, he also wants to buy crap.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's buying beer. He says, "We better get 5 in case we eat 4 on the way home."
yeah.
Well,
It's a
he
great
had
line.
the great line. First, they open up where he doesn't want to be there. He's saying, "Oh, why do we need all this fancy stuff? If it were up to me, we could just shop at the gas station."
Yeah, right.
Like normal people.
Yeah, that was good.
That's a great line, and it's really it comes from a place that like is a recognizable Homer, and it comes from a grounded place, and you can get mine a lot of humor out of that.
Yeah. And I thought-
Yeah, I was just gonna say I like what you say. He's careless. Like
Yeah.
he really just doesn't care, and that kind of attitude Homer had in the best seasons of the show really
Right.
drives a lot of the humor, and that's what they've lost with New Homer. New Homer's just stupid for stupid's sake.
Exactly. And I thought it was very funny that at first Bart and Lisa are like, "Oh, we need this for cupcake class or like candy class." And then eventually they realize like Homer does not care. And
Yeah.
it's just like, "We need this for," and then they just start
Yeah, they
throwing
just
things
throw it in
in.
the cart, yeah. It was
That was good. That's a good, very, like
Yeah.
you said, relatable kind of family thing.
And that wasn't the only funny scene in the first act because
Oh, no, it wasn't.
It cuts to because they're talking. It's like, oh man, food shopping's so fun. I wish Maggie had to go to the emergency room more
Oh,
often.
Dr. Hibbert.
Which is pretty dark.
That's a dark line. I don't know how I feel about that line, but yeah. So they cut to the emergency room, and Maggie has eaten a magazine.
Time magazine.
It was
Yeah.
Time Magazine. I don't know if that's important, but it was Time Magazine.
Marge has that line, and it's a really funny Marge line where she's worried that maybe it being a Time magazine is a problem.
Yeah.
And Hibbert's response was priceless.
Yeah, that was the best. That was the single best joke in the show.
Yeah. Do you want to?
He was, he was like,
This
this
is
doesn't look
serious.
good. Syrian rebels are taking hold.
Yeah, he's
'Cause
reading the headline through
from
the
Time
X-ray.
Magazine.
And it was kind of ahead of its time. It predicted the Syrian Civil
did.
War. That's
Well done,
currently
Simpsons.
embroiled
If
in.
only the world would listen to the Simpsons more.
I also like the animation of just the kind of X-ray, and when he read the headline, you saw Maggie made a face and like looked down and tried to read her own
Yeah,
X-ray.
yeah,
even though she's
yeah.
a baby. I thought that was funny.
Both scenes back to back, very funny stuff. So then it cuts back to the I want to keep the Monster Mart, the Cosmo, I guess.
Don't twist and tweak it.
That's
Which way am I going? Am I twisting or am I tweaking?
terrible.
I don't know what that is. This is what the show is now, Nick.
We pepper in some Simpsons commentary for
Yeah.
flavor, but no. So
It's mostly us just going beep boop bleep boop beep boop.
All right, I'm not gonna join in.
Join in if you want.
No, I'm just gonna sit here and watch you.
Bleep bloop bleep boop.
I'm sure seeing it is completely different from listening to it in your headphones. It's probably a lot more pathetic
Yeah.
to see it in
I don't
person.
know. Are you seeing what I'm doing here? Bleep bloop bleep. Anyway.
So Homer is making the bag boy bag his food in different ways. He's making him bag and rebag it and color coded and order that the foods were discovered by man.
Yeah.
And now he wants them in the order of he'll eat them on the ride home, which is kind of doing the same joke twice. From before, and Agnes
true.
wants all of her food in a single bag.
But she doesn't want it to be
But
too
she doesn't
heavy.
want it to be too heavy. That's like one of those classic Sportswelder, I think, Simpsons
Probably,
lines
yeah.
where with those weird.
And then even the bag boy says, like, I don't think that's going to be possible. And she goes, what are you, the possible police?
Yeah, I didn't like
That was
that.
okay. I don't know. You think Agnes is just this very grumpy old lady.
No.
That's a grumpy old lady thing.
Right, but this is kind of the beginnings of Jerk-ass Homer, where he's really starting to like push this bag boy.
Yeah.
I don't know where Sportswelder even got the idea for this episode. I'd never had
Well,
a problem with bag boys per se.
I'll tell you where they got the idea for this
Okay.
episode. It was actually director Larry Doyle who directed this episode.
Doyle.
Did he direct this episode? I'm going to be lying. Maybe I'm lying. Larry Doyle worked on The Simpsons, and he was going to Albertsons, which is a grocery chain in California, and this actually happened, where there was a bag boy strike. And that was the inspiration for the episode,
So-
for them to go to Africa.
They couldn't actually put food in a bag without breaking union rules or having
I guess.
scabs, I guess.
I didn't know
There-
that there was a union
There
for
really
bag
are
boys.
bag boys.
There's
Yeah.
really bag
I mean, there really are unions.
There really are bag boy unions, apparently.
Wow, that's
At least
crazy.
Albertsons has them.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where they got the idea. So the bag boys go on strike, which I thought was a really ridiculous concept to come up with, but apparently it's
ripped from the headlines. This was a very topical episode. There wasn't much happening in the news pre 9/11.
And I get the whole point of this was to get to the point where they're hungry enough to eat 1960s animal
that's
crackers.
the point. So they were all starving for a long time. There's a joke about how there's some food left in. I didn't really get that joke. They said the food was given to them by relatives who couldn't see very well.
Yeah,
why are relatives giving them food?
They had sulfur jerky and cream of toast.
But is that like a thing? My family never just gives me cans of food.
I think it was just we need an excuse to have weird food in the house.
Yes, that's a really.
But you don't really need an excuse to have
like whose relatives give you random food? Like I guess when I leave, like we had a Memorial Day barbecue a few weeks back at my grandma's, and my uncle insisted I take 2 loaves of Italian bread home and put them in my freezer, and they're in my freezer.
I did see them in your freezer earlier.
I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but so like that's a kind of family thing to do.
Once it's hard enough, you could use it to fend off intruders.
Wait right there. I have to go to the kitchen.
I have to get my frozen bread. Hang on.
Yeah, that was where the show started to get not funny.
What did you guys think of Bart gets some eggs? He says that there was an unattended nest, but obviously the mama bird comes and starts pecking Bart, and it's a very extended sequence.
I could have done without it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was very
No, there wouldn't be. I can't see any real Simpsons fan laughing at that.
Like,
and if when they must have turned in that draft, he gets a fucking nest in the bird.
Yeah, like the show can do.
Bird
I think the fans will really like it if Bart is holding a nest and.
I mean, the show can.
Right in the face. They didn't peck him in the face.
That's what the show has become to be known for is animals hurting Bart.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. The show can do physical humor very well and can do slapstick, but it's usually done because of the pacing and the direction. It's done. There's ways to make like slipping on a banana peel funny, but if you're just doing
slipping on a banana peel is always funny. I don't care who you are.
That's what I'm saying. If you're doing like just a static wide shot of a guy slipping on a banana or this like extended physical violence. I don't know. It's not necessarily like the joke kind of was just Bart being pecked by the bird, and there wasn't a surprise factor to it. I mean, at first there was, but it wasn't the pacing, the direction. None of that was there. The joke was you're supposed to be laughing at the fact that a bird is pecking Bart's face, and what's there?
They've done The Simpsons ran out of food before, like when Marge has a gambling problem, and they run out of food, and it's like, oh, you just got to be creative. Cloves,
For a second, I thought
mix,
that's what I was watching.
Frozen pie crust.
For a second, I thought. I thought that was going to be the joke where he pulled it out. I was like, oh, this is the cloves joke. For a second, I actually thought that's where we were.
Oh.
Yeah. There was Santa's little helper smells some food. And tries to sneak away.
I liked that it was Santa's little helper who I smell food, and he's leading them. As opposed to I could see a more modern episode where it's just oh, we have no food. Cut. I found some food in the attic.
Yeah. I did like too that Santa's little helper didn't want them to know. He was trying to sneak away so that he could eat all the food.
Yeah.
And then when he realizes they start following him, there's actually a really great shot I liked where Santa's little helper jumps up. The food's in the attic, and he jumps up at the cord that hangs from the attic door.
Yeah.
And it's a great close up of the dog coming towards the camera with his mouth open and his teeth bared, and it was just a really fun action shot that they use. And then he bites on, he grabs onto the attic door and opens the attic door with his body.
Yeah,
it's just a really fun way of doing that scene.
Yeah.
So he goes up, and what he found was Homer's childhood lunchbox, Burke's Law. That's definitely a Swartzwelder. That's a classic Simpsons making a reference to an obscure 70s cop show.
Definitely.
I love the Burke's Law lunchbox. I mean, it's no Laugh Command lunchbox, which all the kids have now these days.
That's true. The kids love
Laugh Command, the lunchbox, featuring Bill Shatner.
On your thermos. Command your friends to laugh today at lunch with Laugh Command Lunchbox.
Available at Albertsons now.
End communication.
Bring back Sheriff Lobo.
Lobo.
Yeah, those Lobo, all those great 70s references. Son of Sanford and Son, and After Maddox.
We now return to Return of the Big Man
Returns. Oh, that's a good one.
So I don't know if that's Swartzwelder specifically, but it's definitely reminiscent of the classic Simpsons, obviously. So I like that lunchbox joke. Anyway, they find animal crackers in the lunchbox.
Yeah, before we get to, because that kind of tips off the whole Africa thing, there's something I wanted to bring up. I thought it was interesting that the bag boys go on strike, and for some reason that leads to them not having any food in the house. I guess because
that really didn't make any
So
sense.
there's one scene that kind of gives us the logic to that, where Lenny can't put the food in a bag, so he's carrying the bag, and then they have a picket line from the roof, and they poke the food out of his hand, and he drops all the food.
Okay,
So I guess they're at every single food outlet in Springfield, and they're stopping you from getting the food in your cars.
Typically they shop at the Quickie Mart, and we've known for a fact that there are no bag boys
yeah, that's
there.
true. That's a good point.
It's a huge stretch.
If they just shopped at the gas station, there would be no problem.
You're right.
But the point I wanted to make was, without I'm trying to be delicate with the situation here. This is an episode where they go to Africa, and it's tipped off where they have no food because the bag boys went on strike. Whereas Africa is a continent that has significant problems with human starvation.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
They made that line. They actually
did.
said,
They did. And
Africa has lots of food.
Didn't think that made it better. I actually thought that made it much worse.
That's funny. I missed that line, and I also didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, Homer says, "We'll go to Africa. There's no problem with food there."
Oh, wow. Yeah. The tragic deaths of millions of children a year in a slow, agonizing way to die that can be easily prevented is a pretty good well to mine jokes from. So I can't blame the Simpsons writers.
Like they've made all those India jokes when Apu lived with them. So it's like, okay, well, we'll do Africa now.
That's a good point. Although I like Seinfeld's India jokes better. Don't go there. They still have the plague. The plague.
Yeah, so I just thought it was an odd way to start the episode, because there's really nothing that connects Bag Boys on Strike
That's
to
what
Africa.
I wanted to talk to you about this, because we brought this up just last week, and we brought it up on the show a lot of times, and I think you're a little bit harder on it than I am. But you and we really together have a problem with non sequitur first acts that really don't tie in.
Yeah,
but classic
this was not as bad as last week.
I was going to say, because this one reminded me very much, much more so than the high def episodes, of the classic Simpsons seasons. So the seasons we profess are the best seasons. They had plenty of episodes that did this first act that really didn't have anything to do with anything. There was more of a, I guess the difference is there was more of a A to B to C. You can kind of follow how it got to each next point.
Yeah.
So even if D had nothing to do with A, like one of the first episodes I remember as a kid going, wow, where did that come from? Was when Otto moves in and moves into with the Simpsons, and that came from them going to a Spinal Tap contest, right?
Yeah.
And like I remember that being me as a 9-10-year-old, I was just like, oh, that's a weird way to start the show. But it still did kind of.
It was Spinal Tap to Bart gets a guitar to Otto's playing guitar and then crashes the bus to has to live.
It was like one of the first times where I was like, oh man, look at all these beats that they took. But you could follow each one of those beats. So I'm guessing
it was still a straight line.
So I guess our problem with the newer shows is they don't have that line.
Well, I mean,
it's kind of
last week's episode.
It kind of twists and tweaks.
It was definitely twisted and tweaking. Like last week, Nick, I don't know if you listened to last week's episode. I'll assume that you didn't. We watched an episode where it began with Homer was with the kids at the boardwalk, and Homer eats fire, basically, burns his tongue. His tongue's put into a cast for months. When it gets out of the cast, he's a super taster all of a sudden, and he can't eat normal food, so he has to eat bland food. They serve bland food at the Springfield Elementary cafeteria, so Homer goes to the cafeteria to eat the food there. He works at the cafeteria, and then he meets another parent in the Springfield Elementary cafeteria.
And
that is all of
and she inspires him to become a helicopter parent like she is.
Right.
So I guess that is a straight line. It's just a lot of beats. It's not A to B to C. It's A to B to C to D to E to F to G to H.
You can connect the points on the line. It's just you're
that
zigzagging all over
last
the place.
beat just went weird.
It was it just veers way out there. Twisted and tweaking.
Like they often you're right. In 4, 5, and 6, they often started in some really weird place to arrive at the plot, and it sometimes took 10 minutes to get there. But it was usually much more organic the way it happened.
What do you think this one? So where does this land? Does this land in the more organic season 4, 5, 6 way of doing it, or does it land in the last week's A to B to C to D to E to G to F?
What do you think, Nick?
I thought it needed to be revised. They needed to
tighten it.
Either lengthen the first act a little longer to connect the dots better, or just scrap the whole fucking bag boy thing.
I didn't think it was as bad as last week's episode.
It wasn't as bad.
It's bad. This is bad.
That's from our Empty Nest podcast that we also did since you've last been on the show.
Here's the thing. Like, why did it have to be an old?
That's exactly what I was just gonna say.
Box of crackers.
Yeah.
He could have gotten the animal crackers while they were shopping,
Right.
And avoid, and they didn't need to be starving to eat them. He could have won a sweepstakes. What's the problem?
Maybe the bag boy punches him in the face, and now
Yeah.
the store has to give him a trip to Africa. That's a terrible idea. Never mind.
I mean, having old animal crackers, it didn't add anything. Like
It wasn't
'cause then
fun.
was
It
just-
wasn't funnier. I mean,
No.
I guess he's eating them really old ones is funnier than he's just eating
I
animal
Because
crackers.
he
guess
just goes to the company.
Barnum's circus animals are from Africa. Is that the connection between?
Oh, I have no
Why is
idea.
Animal Crackers giving an Africa vacation?
I mean, it was just a promotion they were running. But then they go to the company, and Homer argues that he should be able to go, and they say no. And then it was like a stupid thing where he hit his eye on the sharp corner of the box, where they're like, "Oh man, we better send him to Africa." That didn't add anything.
Well, it's like, did you ever,
Wrap up the bag boy plot and then send him to Africa.
when Marge goes to jail, they start the episode all with the flu,
with the Osaka
flu
flu, yeah.
outbreak.
But that really doesn't have
that-
anything to do with the
Yeah.
rest of the episode.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it makes
it
sense.
was
No,
it
that's
was
not true.
it was
That's
to
not true.
get to the point where she was so overworked
Right,
that she
because she's
forgot
taking
she
care
was
of 4
stealing,
sick people.
which makes so much sense.
The whole town's in lockdown.
and it
She's
also
stressed.
shows when she's in jail, it shows how much they needed Marge in the first place,
Exactly.
which is what the flu. Yeah, so that was actually kind of tied in a lot stronger than some of the season
Yeah.
4, 5, 6.
I mean, I could have been a little bit more content with the opening if the bag boy thing had come back. It didn't, and
It did at one
Well, it
point
did-
where Homer's.
Oh yeah.
Homer is swinging on a vine, and like I guess they just needed a line there, so Homer just like is thinking to himself and goes, "Striking bag boys, that's silly." Like that was kind of a meta joke.
Yeah, well, I thought you were going to say at the very end, there's like a caption that's like dedicated to the bag boys of America, whose greed and ineptitude made this episode possible.
Let's jump
Like,
way ahead. What do you think of that line?
Oh, it's terrible. Like,
Yeah, it's-
why are you taking shots at bag boys? Like, okay, they're bag boys. It's probably not the most
like-
difficult job in the world.
yeah, they're kicking
It's
like
an
the
unskilled labor.
lowest people in the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Why? Like, they went on strike for a reason. I'm sure they wanted more money, or maybe they're just not getting enough.
Yeah, like I said during the show, the bag boys at the supermarket, the Key Foods down the street from me, they have little tip jars, which is just kind of, and they're usually full to people's credit. I don't tip them usually because I don't pay cash, but I'm
you're
also
a bad
just
person.
But I'm also just like, it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not.
But I mean, it seemed like a strange, like, let's take the bag boys down a peg with this snarky message at the end of our Africa episode.
Why
It's
couldn't
like,
they
what are
bring
you
down
doing?
Costco's? Like, not that I have anything in general against with Costco, but it seems to be more of an institution that, the show usually attacks more institutions than they do low level.
I mean, I get that this dumb thing was happening in California at the time, but that's such a niche thing that it's now 14 years later, and
Yeah.
like all I see is just these rich old white writers being like, these bag boys, their ineptitude and their greed.
Well, I mean,
don't know why I'm doing Bag Boys.
I'm assuming the line is supposed to be facetious. I don't think they actually believe bag boys are inept or greed. Or
No, they do. No, I'm sure they were just pissed
The
off.
Simpsons writers are monsters and they hate bag
That's
boys.
basically what I'm trying to
But
say.
you actually think they were still upset about the strike?
No,
I don't think it came from that at all.
I think it was just that.
I think it was just they thought it was a weird thing that would be funny to put in. Striking bag boys.
Oh, I guess I was a little more vindictive than you were
I don't
thinking it was.
Yeah, I think the line is just in there because it's silly. I don't-
Okay.
Yeah. I
If
don't
it's
think
silly, that's fine.
But that's what I'm saying. Even though it's silly, or at least I think it's there to be silly, and they're not actually saying anything. I still think it was a lame line. I thought it wasn't very funny. It reminded me of a lot of Saturday Night Live sketches where they don't know how to end, so they just end with like scrolling text that is usually not funny. Here's one line that reminded me of a post-classic Simpsons.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
Really? Let me see. What do you think?
Was it when he was talking to the company executives?
No, it's earlier.
Oh, okay. Then I'll hold my line.
That was a good scene. The
Talking to the company
Yeah,
executives?
yeah.
All right, let's hear Jack's thing, and then we'll talk about that.
All right, mine's really quick. He just he was negotiating with the manager of the supermarket, and he says, "Only if I get to keep this rubber stick."
Oh yeah.
The rubber stick you put on the conveyor belt to
separate your items and your-
Why
yeah.
does he want that? That's stupid. I don't know. It was just like. Well, I
did nothing. I
feel
forgot
like,
about it
I
until
feel
you
like
just
that's
said
the
it.
type of stuff they do now, where Homer just it's like, here's something specific from life that you'll recognize, and Homer wants it for no reason.
Right.
I don't know. I thought it was stupid. What were you talking about?
Where he wins the prize and he talks to the Animal Cracker Company and they now make poison.
Yes, that was funny.
That's like a Simpsons, classic Simpsons joke where the subsidiary or the parent company owns all these weird, awful things.
And they're initially denying him the trip to Africa, but then just the stupidest little accident, they're like, oh, he could sue us over this. Very dangerous.
Right, yeah, his eye is poked with a box corner.
You didn't mind. You liked that plot point.
No, I thought that was funnier. I mean, than the rest of the show.
Yeah. I mean, then the Africa stuff for sure. Also, before we go to Africa,
I have another thing before.
Yeah,
Africa,
Kent Brockman is talking about all the other unions that have joined in.
Yes, the Ugly Waitresses of America was one of them.
Yeah, and then an old ugly waitress comes in and just goes, "Kiss my grits," which is a line from
Alice.
From Alice, but it's also a line that I feel like The Simpsons and The Critic used to go to all. It's like one of those lines that just really stuck with the Simpsons writers.
Because that was like a classic '70s sitcom catchphrase. Because Alice used to say, "Kiss my grits, Mel."
And I feel like the times they have
Alice was a show.
Yeah,
in the '70s.
Yeah, and
Simpsons has said it before.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
usually when they incorporate it, it's in a funnier way. This was just kind of, she's just saying, here's the line. Here's Kiss My Grits.
Right, it was like, I didn't do it. He's saying the line.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like that was a really pointless, stupid line.
And before the act break, at the end of the first act, they're like cut to Africa and
there's a scene at first and it just goes, Homer just bursts in. It cuts from the executive meeting, and it goes to Homer, and he just bursts into the living room or the family room, and he just goes, "The Simpsons are going to Africa," and I was just like, "Oh man, that's a really plain scene," but it was actually tying into the Africa scene. So he goes, "The Simpsons are going to Africa," and then it cuts to Africa.
Right, it cuts to Africa and I don't know, like a tribal dance, I guess.
Yeah.
Someone says like shudders.
A witch doctor or a tribal medicine man named Nagungo.
Nagungo, yeah. He shudders and he's like, "Oh, a great evil is coming." Yeah. And he says, "You're Nagungo now," and he gives someone else the mask he was wearing and runs away.
That was terrible.
That was terrible.
It was pretty I mean, I did like the idea of this. The Simpsons are going to Africa, and I like that. Somebody in Africa suddenly got like a shudder down their spine, and like it was a good way to end the first act to like set up the Simpsons coming to Africa, but it wasn't. It was really not funny.
They did a joke like that before. I can't place what it was, but I remember Homer like agreed to something, and then it cut to Marge, and Marge had like a shiver in her spine.
No, wasn't it Patty?
I don't know what that was.
Wasn't it Patty and Selma?
Oh, it's from Bart Carney because Homer lets he agrees to let the Carneys live there, and it cuts to Marge at home shuddering and going, "I don't know, something's happened." All right, so that was it for Act 1.
So the second act starts with them on the airplane and to Africa. The flight attendant is saying they are now on their way to Tanzania. We just got word the name of the country is now New Zanzibar. We just got word the name is now Pepsi Presents New Zanzibar.
Yeah.
So obviously that is joking on two different things. It's joking on the fact that the map of Africa is constantly changing. The countries are always changing their names. The borders are changing. The governments are changing. It's been a problem in Africa pretty much since the end of the colonial era. It's also, I think, very indicative of the late 90s, early 2000s period it came from, where everybody was joking about how corporations were just naming everything. That's when all the stadiums pretty much became names. I remember Fight Club, maybe the book, definitely the movie.
Planet Starbucks.
Yeah, Planet Starbucks, and they'll talk about how planets and things in space will eventually be named by corporations. Probably all true things. I think now we're just so used to it that it's not really as, I don't even think most people realize when they go to see the Nets at Barclays Center that Barclays is a bank. But
Wrigley Field.
Yeah, that's true. It's been around. It's definitely been around for a while.
Wait, is Wrigley Field like Wrigley's gum?
I think so.
Unless it's named after the guy.
I mean, I'm
Wrigley.
basing that on nothing.
I mean, it could be named after the guy Wrigley who started the company, but I don't know.
Named after the Adventures of Pete and Pete.
No, I mean, it definitely predates the late 90s. There's Coors Field.
Coors Field, yeah.
I'm assuming that's Coors
Chewing
Field.
gum magnate William Wrigley Jr. Yeah.
And he didn't have a twin. He didn't have an identical twin.
Bush Beer has a stadium.
Yeah, Bush. So it's
that one.
I mean, those make a little bit more sense because you drink beer at baseball, and you chewing gum comes with baseball cards. I mean, it's
drink
kind of
Pepsi in Africa.
I mean, the banks have the money.
You can't argue with that, can you, Jack? Trying to just steamroller his comment.
I'm just saying, like, banks have money. That's why they own most of the ones are like Citi Field and Barclays Center these days, and there's another one. But anyway. So I didn't really like that Pepsi line because I was just kind of like, I mean, it's not their fault, I guess, but it just seemed like it was low-hanging fruit in the 90s, and now it just kind of dates itself.
It's not their best joke.
It wasn't the best. The idea, I guess, was funny that the
country keeps
place
changing
is changing names even during this flight.
Yeah, it's a tricky with this episode in general. Is a lot of the jokes come from the political unrest in Africa, which again, like starving children, it's a really serious issue, but it's so prevalent that we've kind of just become desensitized to it. So it's I almost don't want to say it's as offensive as it should be, but
yeah, I mean, this episode is basically just list of Africa references and let's make.
But
jokes
they are
about
making light of like at the end, like there's a President Muntu that they see on a billboard, and then at the end he's actually a flight attendant, and the episode ends with them just laughing at this guy like he's a flight attendant now, ha ha ha, and it's like yeah, you're laughing at this trope that is happening in Africa all the time of these horrible coups and how these people have no stability, and it's a pretty awful place to live at times.
Well, but Muntu seized power in a bloodless coup. It was all smothering.
I love that line.
Yes, that was a good line. I wanted to point that
bloodless
one out.
Bloodless coup.
A bloodless coup.
Smothers. I didn't like the follow-up, though. That's how Carter did it. Only because it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't really have a root in anything.
I guess they just like to make fun of Jimmy Carter.
I know.
They do, but yeah.
There's like at least Malays Forever kind of comes from somewhere. This the idea that Carter just
part of the Carter administration. Well, you voted for him twice. Someone might be listening.
See, but that's funny.
Yeah, that's good.
Whereas like Carter getting a coup, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. But I don't know.
So yeah, they're with the tour guide.
Yeah,
I didn't like any of that. The whole section of the show.
There was one part I like. So he takes them to their hotel. This was stupid. Marge is like, "Oh, we have to sleep on the ground," but she's just looking down. She doesn't see their tree.
Right. It was like a treehouse hotel, which is pretty cool and looked visually. I like the animation.
It did look cool. So Homer tries to throw his luggage up.
Yeah.
And it misses. It bounces back. It hits the ground. It hits the car. It bounces into a spider web. I don't know what's crazy about that. That was kind of funny. But I love the giant spider comes down, spits acid, and it just withers. And the pacing of that sequence was very classic Simpsons, where it took its time, and it was just funny. Like then the spider crawls down the web, then the spider spits acid, and then there's the crumpling,
just crumples
like
up.
the crumpling. It just felt very classic Simpsons. I like that.
It reminds me of when Flanders' house catches fire, and then there's like immediately just a rain comes down in a rainbow.
Flanders is good. Why is this house burning?
Thanks God. Oakley.
So I like that.
Yeah, that was fine. Here's my question for you. Did this Animal Cracker Company pay for this hotel and also for this tour guide too? It's a minor nitpick.
Yeah, I mean, well, now it's not a contest winning anymore. It's to prevent a lawsuit.
That's true.
It makes sense.
So it makes sense.
And again, Homer throwing his luggage up the hotel is a really stupid thing to do, but it's like more of a classic
makes
Homer.
sense, Homer
He's
would
just
do
like,
that.
it's faster. I'm not really thinking. I'm shooting first, asking questions later. It's not like the Homer from the episodes we've been covering where he's just like,
I'm wondering why did they think it would be funnier if he threw it? Or, like they could have just had some rickety elevator and it could have fallen off.
I thought when he threw it, it was going to go through the straw wall of the hut, because I think when the Simpsons go to Japan, they make a joke about how he just walks right through the paper walls.
He just pushes through the walls.
Yeah, and I thought that was going to be the joke, and it wasn't. So it was just, I guess it was to set up the giant spider.
Every Africa joke was super lazy.
So here's the next joke. The next scene, I have a question. Didn't get the joke. So they look, and a rhino comes out of an egg, like a baby rhino is hatched from an egg.
Right.
And Lisa's like, rhinos don't come from eggs. And Homer's like, what did you just see? And then they see a giraffe come out of an anthill.
Yeah.
This is what I guess it is, but maybe I'm missing something. Is the joke that like safaris are famous for like faking the animals, like forcing the animals to make it more tourist friendly? Is that what's going on?
So here's what's going on.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia.
Please, yes.
Matt Selman, who was one of the writers at this time, and I think still is a writer there.
Yeah, I think he's one of the big ones now.
He is. He said that they wanted to have things that were deliberately wrong to anger people who care about things being real.
So is that what?
So the joke is like intentionally this and other things, I would imagine. Like,
but they didn't keep that going at all.
No, it was just that one moment, I guess.
I would say that I don't know Matt Selman, but maybe they just wanted like a lame-ish joke, and they didn't want to be called out on anything else that was potentially wrong, like that hippos and lions or whatever don't live side by side in Africa or whatever it was.
Or like, Nick was bringing up before we started recording. So they go according to the flight attendant, they are in Tanzania, and then the question is that where they are the rest of the episode, like when they get off the beaten path? Because you said the tribal.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know that much about Africa, but I know that the the tribe that has the lip plates.
Yeah,
It's not the same tribe that has the neck.
That was another thing
stuff.
cited on Wikipedia as not being factually
Right,
accurate.
and the
they
animal,
knew that.
some of the animals aren't together. I also am wondering if both Victoria Falls, was it Victoria?
Victoria
And
Falls,
Mount
yeah.
Kilimanjaro.
And Mount Kilimanjaro, are they both in Tanzania, and are they both within a day's walk of each other? I feel like that's probably not the case. So what you're saying is they put this rhino egg and giraffe in the anthill, I guess, to mitigate all of these other errors, just to say, look, it's a cartoon, lighten up, everybody.
I feel like the hippo being afraid of water would have been 100 times funnier if they didn't do the stupid giraffe.
I also thought
You're right.
that.
I was like, oh no, hippos actually really love it. No,
Yeah, the
good play
hippos-
on your expectations.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's 100%
But
right.
the egg with the rhino was retarded.
Yeah, it was just whatever.
And, like, unless they're gonna follow up on that.
And
I
at
don't know.
least that I could see, like, oh, rhinos don't come from eggs. Why would a giraffe be in an anthill? I didn't really get that.
Well, I mean, that's the joke, but it's just not a great joke.
Yeah.
For the record, Mount Kilimanjaro is in Tanzania.
Oh, there you go.
And Victoria Falls is at the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe. I have no idea how close that is.
I used to know. I
Tanzania.
was learning my
terrible with geography.
I was learning my geography for the Jeopardy test. I think the Zimbabwe and Zambia are more on the west side. I don't know. I have no idea.
But yeah, the whole the lip disc thing and the neck raising things that's mentioned on Wikipedia, which is
Right.
never wrong, as being another thing that was like intentionally wrong. But there's a fine line between intentionally wrong and who the fuck cares? Nobody knows anything
Yeah,
about
like
Africa.
I would never know that those two tribal things were different
Right.
without looking it up. Whereas I know a rhino.
I know a
doesn't-
rhino doesn't get hatched. I saw Ace Ventura too.
I don't know. So then, both the giraffe and the rhino, I thought was pretty stupid and lame. Even,
It was
even
stupid.
knowing the rationale behind it.
How racist is this episode?
See,
Very
I don't know.
or not very?
Like, if it was gonna be racist, they should have been racist consistently, and they
Be
weren't.
more racist.
It's like either be more racist and jump head. I feel like because they wanted to not tiptoe around some things.
Yeah.
And then just brazenly be racist about other
I feel
things.
like it's more lazy than racist.
Yeah,
like,
I felt like the whole episode he just had a National Geographic. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, what do we got here? Lips.
What are Africa facts? Okay, they got monkeys.
Yeah.
They got diamonds.
I think that was more the case.
They
And
got
I,
political
I even
slurs.
think they went out of their way to try to not be racist. By there's a scene where they're on the river and there's like deep jungle tribes. And they're talking ominously while watching them from the river, but the subtitles show that they're actually very nice and polite, and they're
Right.
like, "Oh, they look friendly. I want to show them the drawing I made today." And oh man, this isn't your week.
Yeah.
And I think they put that there specifically to be like, "Hey, we don't think that these people are savages."
Yeah, I mean, Homer did throw a spear at them for no reason.
Yeah.
They hadn't done anything, and Homer's just
I
like,
don't know.
"Oh."
I think it's.
I don't know if that's racist.
If
It's just stupid Homer,
if there's
but-
any racism in this episode, I think it's more on the inoffensive kind. It's funny.
Yeah, no, not offensive. I think this episode is just lazy. I think it was just lazily
It's
written
funny
episode.
that it's funny too. I think culturally, our perspective is just so skewed. So when we did Goo Pan, an episode where the Simpsons go to China,
Yep.
we had a long discussion about how hearing white actors do Chinese voices, like "Oh, I'm so sorry," it seems more offensive now than it may have done in the past. I was saying is maybe it's politically correct, maybe it's
Yeah.
not. But my gut was telling me I was uncomfortable hearing them do the Chinese voice, like the Chinese accent. Like to me, my gut. I don't know if it is politically incorrect or not.
It's just
Maybe
been
it's
conditioned.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's okay with it,
I
but my
think-
gut was uncomfortable with it. Whereas this time, I thought of it. I was like, "Oh man, they're doing African voices. This is something we brought up in the last show with Chinese."
I actually thought it was less of a problem here.
Is it because it's less of
Because-
an accent? Because African.
It's less of
the
an
ac-
accent because it's just that's the African accent, and even like white people in Africa have that accent, like
Well, but Chinese people when
like
they
Leonardo DiCaprio in the film Blood Diamond.
This is my day. This is my African voice. Day. It's Africana. It's
Down
from
here it's-
Dutch. Day.
It's bang bang, not bling bling.
It's bang bang. It's bing bing. I'm Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm also Jennifer Connelly. I'm everybody in the cast. I'm everybody in the world. Day.
Jesus.
Can't imagine that's enjoyable to listen to. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it
Well,
felt
what I
less
was gonna say is,
wrong
well,
here.
what I was gonna say is the African accent, the African voices, because of colonialism, a lot of African countries speak English.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit more English-centric. I don't know. I'm not a linguistic expert. I'm not sure if the accent's also coming from their tribal and from Swahili, whereas the Chinese is much more foreign to an English ear. So,
Yeah.
but I disagree to some extent. I think, yes, bad Chinese accents are more over the top, like more stereotypical. But if you listen to a Chinese person with an a Chinese American or a Chinese person speaking English with a Chinese accent, it's pretty similar to what we're calling an offensive stereotype.
I mean, I don't even remember where we actually came out on the show, but I know that brought up.
We were in a gray area.
I know that I brought up the scene from the interview, which you hadn't seen at the time.
Right.
Which was, there's a joke where Seth Rogen's on the phone with someone from North Korea, and like he talks in like a oh, miso sorry accent, and the joke is haha, he's doing a funny voice.
Yeah.
That's super racist.
Yeah.
When the joke is like, listen to how they talk, isn't that funny? If they're just doing it and that's not the joke, I think that's more.
That's part of
on the spectrum of super
So
racist.
if the accent is not played for laughs solely for the sound of it,
right? Exactly.
This is part of a much longer conversation that we may or may never have about Family Guy. But I think a lot of the racist humor on Family Guy comes from that very source where they know it's racist and they're pointing it out. They're like, hey, look, we're doing a black guy voice. We know this is, but we're not racist. We're cool with black people, and we're just pointing this out that this is a thing. But by doing that, they're also
probably even worse, actually.
And I think Family Guy has that problem a lot. But that's not neither here nor there. For this one, I don't know. I just thought the accents, like hearing the white voice cast do these African accents, to my gut was less offensive than if they were to do Chinese or I mean, also like we were talking about in that Chinese episode, like Apu. Apu is doing an Indian accent. That's no different.
Right. No, you're right. It's not. But Apu's never. He's never the butt of the joke because, look at this weird foreigner over here.
Right.
He talks like a moron.
Yeah,
that's never the joke.
I guess that's the
Apu
difference.
is actually one of the most fleshed out characters on the show.
That's the difference. The African accents they do with all the characters here, they're not being played for jokes. They're just trying to do this is what they would sound like. Whereas I feel like with the Chinese, when they're doing the Chinese accents, there's still this tinge of like they're talking funny. Like from the voice, like, but maybe I didn't
hear that.
But maybe I'm being racist. Maybe I'm just hearing them and I'm thinking to myself like, maybe I'm seeing something that's not there because I'm inherently racist. I don't know.
We need more white men on here.
Yeah, we need more white straight men to get through these all hard-boiled issues we keep bringing up on the show.
That's exactly what we need.
Racist? I don't know any Africans.
I don't know any Africans either. I've never been to Africa. I probably never will.
More specifically, was it a Tanzanian accent?
Yeah, see, there you go.
See, I don't know.
These are questions we can't answer.
My point really is just that I feel like
the tribal stuff and the primitive stuff.
No, not even just like. Well, yeah, the fact that like they mixed up like Tanzanian tribes don't actually do that stuff, and just the callousness of like we intentionally made it that way for people who who care about that stuff like realism and facts and like not being racist to a tribe and
So we haven't done the Simpsons Go to England yet. That'll be a better one because it'll be the exact same beats and we'll see if it's offensive to English people or if it's just lazy here we're in England writing. I think that's a better way to do it because they're white and we can talk about it without getting.
I don't know that anything could possibly be offensive to the English people.
So what I was going to say is we have seen one scene where the Simpsons go to France. And they do French jokes about how Homer is like fat and bald, but he looks sophisticated.
Right, but he's a gourmand in France.
So would you say that that's racist against French people?
French isn't a race.
French isn't a race. Yeah, it would be like
that's a good point. Okay.
Nationalistic against French people.
That's a good point.
Well, so like when they go to Australia, they make fun of all kinds of, and they're very inaccurate about almost everything in Australia.
So is that offensive to Australians in the same way this would be?
Oh, I'm sure Australians were offended by the episode.
They literally put a naked ass on their flag with a boot kicking
it. Their prime minister was naked in a small tub drinking a beer in the middle of it.
But you're right though; it's different because even though they are different culturally, it's not really a race. They don't really have quite the same this problem of.
Australia and Africa have had different treatment in America.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know. Let's wrap this up.
I don't
think it was too offensive or racist. But I could see the argument being drawn there.
I'm just saying it was very factually lazy.
It was it was certainly that, but I don't know, I don't have a clear answer, but I would say I would probably lean towards it was just lazy writing more so than
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I definitely don't think they were being consciously racist, but again, just like with the gay episode we did a couple weeks ago, I think they could very well slip into unconsciously racist, but I think it's more just lazy writing, if anything. So still on the safari,
Yes.
I did like the cheetah gag where she's like, that cheetah's not very fast, and then she puts the binoculars down and the cheetah's right there.
Yeah.
I like that quick gag, and I also like that when she's startled, it scares the cheetah. Like the cheetah's this scary animal.
And it meows like an actual cat and runs away.
Runs away, yeah.
Yeah, I like that too.
What I didn't like in that same scene is then they're listening to the radio.
Okay, now this might have been offensive.
This I would say maybe, but this and later on in the episode would probably be the most problematic.
And here's an interesting background fact. So they're listening to I've looked up now. It is an actual song that was popular in Africa at the time.
Okay.
And Hank Azaria as what was his name? Kitenge.
Yeah.
As Kitenge is singing along with the song. Apparently, Hank Azaria actually went to a professor of Swahili to learn how to sing it properly.
Okay, so that helps.
that's
that
great.
right there says that, like, look, these voices aren't.
Yeah, they care. But then immediately it's Homer just going like ding a ding a day and just like.
It's Dan Castellaneta doing his gibberish.
No, I didn't think that was. He was singing a different song. What Homer was singing, I think
He wasn't just singing gibberish.
No, what's that song? Good Morning Starshine. The Earth says hello, because it sounded like zeeba doob doobie zeeba dooby dooby la 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 lo lo. That's what I thought he was singing.
That would make sense where
it's just like scatting.
I mean, it's still kind of bad in that he's
I don't
pretending
know.
African is gibberish, but if he's tying it into an actual song lyrics from some.
Maybe I'm wrong. That's what I thought he was singing. Yeah.
Could be. I don't know. I just thought it was
I thought
interesting that they put so much care into Hank Azaria being able to do it, but then there was still a joke at the expense of how ridiculous this music sounds.
Because also there's a later scene where they're tribal dancing and Homer just starts playing the bongos and speaking gibberish again, doing the same gibberish, or maybe it wasn't. And he's also done this in other episodes. Like Dan Castellaneta, the actor, seems to really like doing gibberish in the Homer voice. He seems to get a kick out of it.
Yep.
It's very rarely actually funny, and in this case I didn't like it because it's just like, hey, look how silly the African language is.
Right.
I mean, if it is tying into an actual song lyrics, that's a little bit smarter, but it's still even doing that is saying, hey, look at this gibberish language. I don't know.
I'm not offended by it.
I don't think, well, as straight white males that can afford to do a podcast on the weekend, clearly we are the be-all, end-all when it comes to racism in the world.
Amen.
Song has been going on for hours.
Yeah, it's like the Allman Brothers.
Yeah, so then they are they chase off poachers.
I like that the
one scene.
poachers are capturing the cheetah, presumably the same cheetah we saw before. If not a different cheetah, at least it looked just like the cheetah. I like that it gave some continuity to this African sequence, that they didn't just pick another random animal. I'll give them that.
Okay, and I actually liked the fact that it was poachers, and it kind of sets up the end when poachers, air quotes I'm doing,
And I totally
come
bought
back.
into it, and I've seen this episode a few
Yeah,
times.
me too. I forgot
I
all
thought they
about
were
the
actually
ending.
poachers.
Yeah. I just liked that it set it up like, oh, this is a thing. Like, poachers exist. So later on, when Greenpeace comes in, we'll think they're poachers.
Another dated late 90s, early 2000s, the old Navy era of human history.
They
Cargo
left
pants?
their cargo pants.
Yeah, I wasn't crazy about that
It
show.
was whatever. Did nothing for me.
Reminded me of 2001.
Yeah, that's true.
I like that when they were on tour, it wasn't just, hey, here's safari, jungle animals, and poachers, and our African politics are scary and weird. I like that some of the African landmarks and stuff they did were a little bit smarter. I mean, Mount Kilimanjaro and Victoria Falls are one thing, but what I really liked was that they acknowledged that Africa is like kind of where the dawn of man is, and where they found Lucy and the first species of Homo sapiens.
Yep. And then immediately Homer turns into a jerkass about it.
Yeah.
You don't have more bones than me. I think that was his exact line.
Yeah, what the hell was that line?
I have no idea. That was definite jerkass Homer coming into play.
Yeah,
Just like
yeah.
being angry and stupid for the sake of being angry and stupid.
I guess they just needed some kind of joke to go with the setup, but at least I like that they brought that up, and that it wasn't just all like dumb African stereotypes. I would say that's a little less lazy, but it was definitely lazy to have Homer have a jerk-ass reaction to it.
They could have done a human evolution joke somewhere. I mean,
I would still think we were going to do something where, like, Homer resembled more the, like...
he could have looked exactly like the fucking Australopithecus or whatever.
Yeah,
That would have been good.
Or Marge could have been too devout to accept it, like she's a creationist or something.
Yeah. To think that these bones are only 6,000 years old.
Yeah, there you go. See, way funnier.
Then they do have the tribal dance. They're spending a night with the tribe. We already established that they kind of use shorthand and combine different cultures in there.
Right.
What did you think of? Was it offensive?
The blood joke?
I was gonna say, was it offensive that Lisa wore the neck thing and Bart had the lip thing? I don't think so.
No, I don't think it was offensive. It was kind of stupid. It was just like, hey, these are things African people do.
Yeah, that's the problem. It was
Like-
lazy writing. There was no joke there.
But now, you didn't get the joke though. Like that's things that African people do, but now the Simpsons are doing it, so it's very funny.
And then Bart takes the thing out. Now his lip is all floppy. Uh-oh.
yeah, I thought that was really
Yeah,
stupid.
stupid.
Big laughs.
That was. I'd say that was.
Did you see his lip was hanging?
You stupid.
Honestly, the writer that thought of that joke, like watching it at home, like saying, "I wrote that joke."
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is I think that's
The lip thing.
I think that joke's in the same vein as the bird pecking Homer Bart in the earlier scene.
You're right.
It's kind of like
It's just kind of there.
it's just kind of there. The spitting out the blood. What did you think of that?
So apparently, according to Wikipedia, apparently that the tribe actually does do that. They do drink cow blood.
Oh yeah,
I get that.
where there's no water.
So
this-
I had no idea about that.
I liked it where they have a spit take. Well, I didn't like. Well, Homer goes, "Which blood is this?" So they know they're drinking blood. They're just offended that it's cow's blood. That's the joke, which is like one of those post-classic Simpsons jokes where isn't this silly that they already thought this one thing and then
Right.
whatever.
It was just whatever.
But I did like that when they do the spit take and they spit on the tribal elders. You think they're all going to be offended and then they just bust out laughing.
I kind of like that too. That wasn't bad. Here's a question for you. Homer's hitting all the bongo drums. Why is the hippo already in the center of
Just sitting
group?
sitting there.
It's just sitting there, and Homer hits it, and that's when it goes crazy.
I didn't like his gibberish in that scene. We already established that, but I did like the hit where they're talking about how the tribal song is going on forever, and either Marge or Homer says it's like the Allman Brothers.
Yeah, that was a good line.
So the hippo goes wild.
Hippo goes wild, and it just kind of chases him out, and that's when
Use a shield as a boat.
they're on the river. They get separated from their guide Katunge, and there was a scene where they come to the fork in the river, and one side is like super nice and happy, and one side is like skulls and darkness.
Right.
And they really hammered it home where Homer looks to one way and looks the other way and then looks back and then looks back and then looks back and then looks
it's
back.
intentional.
Get it? He's stupid.
He's dumb. He doesn't realize
know
which way he
is
should
the
go.
Good one. Yeah. And it's also I feel like they've done not just the boat and the fork in the road. They did that.
Yeah, well, they did that with the
Boy
Junior
Scouts
Campers.
But
and
I feel like they've done. I think it was Bart. Maybe I don't know. I feel like they've done at least once, if not multiple times, where they're at a fork in the road, and one is clearly the good way to go, and one is the bad way to go, and they're not sure which way to go.
Yeah, I feel like Bart has done something like that.
Whatever.
In the episode.
That was lame.
It's just whatever.
So,
and then he sticks his arm in the water and it comes up with leeches, and then there's a giant leech.
Yeah, 'cause Africa,
That's one
everything's
better than a
bigger.
bunch. It's a big one.
Giant spiders,
whatever.
giant leeches. I like the animation of all the animals in this. For what it's worth, the hippo, the leech, the spider. So they go down the wrong one. I was waiting for some kind of Heart of Darkness, at least some kind of reference or something that never came.
That would have been good.
So Homer says, "Oh, we're not lost," and we have a map, and there's a map on the box of animal crackers that he brought with him for some reason.
Yeah, really.
And it's just a map of Africa with no lines or borders on it, and a picture of a monkey. And Homer goes, "Monkey."
Yeah, that was dumb.
That was stupid.
But I actually did like when he goes, I've got a map here on the animal cracker box. According to the map, there are no rivers, and he tries to step off the boat.
See, I thought that was
You
too
thought that was
stupid.
stupid?
I think that was like veering back into, I'm Homer.
Am I alone on that one, Nick? Did you think that was funny?
I didn't laugh when
All right.
I watched it. But
Maybe it's stupid, but
And then they fall off the falls, and this is a canon again. This is me overthinking the episode. But I was like, once they got to the falls, I was like, oh, good, they're back to civilization because surely there's got to be some kind of tourist center by the waterfall.
oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
It's like that's where there's going to be civilization, but that's overthinking it.
Nope, giant flower.
So they go off the waterfall. Homer says, Homer wants to talk about the tribal people before they fall off. Like they know they're about to fall off the waterfall, but Homer's like, but let me mention this, and he starts starts talking about. Here's why I think those people are rude. Something like that. He says. That was stupid. So they fall off the waterfall. Instead of landing on jagged rocks, they land in, again, one of Africa's giant things. It's a giant flower that eats people.
Right.
I like those. So Homer just opens the petal of the flower and they crawl out. And Bart's like how did you do that? And Homer's like, it's a flower.
I like that.
Although
that
I was surprised, like,
delivery.
why is Bart wondering? It was just kind of obvious. But Homer's reaction was great.
Yeah. This was a weird line. Maybe this tied into the Heart of Darkness kind of thing. Because... they're walking around. They have no idea where they are. They don't know where they're going. And the kids are going, "Are we insane yet? Are we insane yet?"
Yeah.
That was weird.
It's a nice little callback to the Simpsons, season 1, season 2 Simpsons.
I guess. But are we insane yet?
And Homer keeps saying, "I told you, yes."
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you're right. I guess the insane yet is the Heart of Darkness.
Yeah,
reference.
being driven insane.
I guess in retrospect, I was thinking I can see the Heart of Darkness stuff, but I never read the book, so I didn't really.
I was thinking it was more from Sunstroke, but the Heart of Darkness is really more about how as you descend into the dark of the jungle, you descend into madness and.
Yeah. I guess I hadn't been there long
read the
enough.
Book. You know, Apocalypse
I've seen
Now
Apocalypse Now.
Is a remake.
See, I've read the book. I never saw Apocalypse Now.
You should see Apocalypse Now. It's
on
got a
Netflix
young 17-year-old Larry Fishburne.
I actually started it and didn't finish it because it's a little long.
It's a little on the long side.
It's a long film.
Yeah, but there's naked girls in it.
All right, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to watch Apocalypse Now.
But it's so fast and upbeat and full of non-stop CGI action.
Oh wait, actually, I don't think they get naked.
All right, guys, I'm coming back. Let me just open this door. Jack, your door's broken again.
That saves me the trouble of I was going to do, you know who's in Apocalypse Now, don't you? Everybody me! Leonardo DiCaprio, look at my man bun, look at my boobs. I'm on a yacht and I'm fat now. I don't care about anything. I'm Leonardo DiCaprio. My life's amazing.
This is the most annoying character on the show now. All right, I'll see myself out.
Was that the twisty guy?
No, who was that stranger?
It's Tweaky Twist.
Tweaky twist.
No, that was Dan Hadalik. He comes around from time to time.
Tweak the twist.
So, what did you guys think about? So, they finally find Dr. Bushmill's monkey sanctuary.
Yes.
And Marge goes, "Oh, that was nice of Dr. Bushwell to name it after his wife."
Yes. I thought that was funny. Because that's Marge.
That's like a Marge. She's just so
like Marge.
Yeah.
So conservative and traditional.
I think it was hitting it a little too home, a little over the head, and kind of killing the joke when they go, "No, they named it after his wife," and she goes, "A woman scientist. Now I've heard everything."
Oh, did that even happen?
Yeah,
I don't
that
remember
happened.
Oh, she said that line?
That didn't need to be in there.
I don't think I made it up.
If you did make it up, terrible line.
Homer did have that line what was like scientists always wasting their lives.
That felt like a Swartzwelder line. So let's talk about that. So Dr. Bushwell, she's like a Dr. Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, I guess. She lets them into her walled sanctuary, so they're happy they finally found civilization again, and she treats them to dinner. Yeah, sort of. She treats them to dinner, and they're having dinner.
They're having grubs.
They're eating bugs.
Yeah, what'd you think of that? Bart is like, I like this. I like this grub. No, it's grubs. It's like, they're juicy.
Yeah,
Bart was literally eating grubs.
Easy joke to make. I liked it. I don't know. I always thought grubs, for some reason, those like squishy white bugs, like maggots and grubs. I've never tried them, but I feel like I'd like them. I think it's because I think it's because I really like gummy bears and like just like,
yeah, they're almost the same thing.
That
There's
works.
very little difference
know, like,
between an insect.
Let's go dig up some grubs and you can have a taste test. Jack, I don't know what gummy bears you're eating, but you need to return them.
Let's not exaggerate. Not gummy bears, gummy worms.
Oh, okay.
Gummy worms.
That makes a world of difference.
Pardon me.
So Homer has a couple of funny lines here where the joke is that he's having dinner and it's like a kind of a fancy dinner and they're all proper manners and he says stupid things and I like both of them. So the first thing he says, he goes, So I noticed your home smells of feces,
Yes.
and like he says it in his like, "Ooh, I'm very
Trying to
proper
be fancy,
and
yes.
upscale." So I thought
I
that
like that.
delivery made the line funny.
Yeah.
And then what you were saying, the next line was where he says, "So you do this every day? I mean, I know scientists waste their lives, but
jeez."
And that seems like a Swartzwelder line where he's pointing out that like this amazing thing that scientists do in like compared to what we do, watching TV all day and
Right.
this stuff is kind of like it is kind of a waste of your life, especially when your research, in the long term is probably very good and each brick builds up to a wall, but it is kind of insane to devote your entire life to something so
Right,
tedious
and-
and small.
Obviously, Homer would think that. So
Yeah,
jeez.
it was that I liked
was good.
I liked that.
It was fine.
There was a monkey named Pointy. The monkey that pointed.
Because it was pointing.
I like that. I also liked I laughed at this when Homer's like, yeah, when they think poachers have come in. It turns out it was actually Greenpeace, but they think it's poachers, and they're like, we have to do anything we can to defend these noble animals. And then Homer turns and looks at the chimp, and the chimp is just rubbing its butt against the tree.
Yeah.
You like that? Oh, I thought that was
I
funny.
mean, it's a good setup. It's
Chimps
like
do
they're,
that, I
They're
mean,
noble, yeah, they're noble animals, but they're scratching their butts and they throw poop at people. It's funny. I don't know. I thought it was a little juvenile the way it was executed. I don't know.
Well, I like butts.
do you like butts, man?
Yeah, man, I love those butts.
Did you ever notice
those crazy butts?
Since you haven't been watching The Simpsons, did you ever notice that the season 1 voices, Bart sounds like Sammy Davis Jr.? It's me, Bart, man. How's it going?
Don't have a cow, dude.
So another joke in this season 12 episode, which again in the long term of things, season 12 is as close to the classic era.
This
as
is the
anything.
first half of the series.
Yeah, but another season 12 joke in this episode that I thought reminded me of a quintessential classic 90s Simpsons was, so they Marge and Lisa grab bees to fight out. They're all fending off the poachers with whatever they have, coconut bombs, etc. So Lisa and Marge grab bees and use blow darts and blow bees with their stingers out and blow out the tires of the poacher's car.
You like that?
So what I liked is all the air goes out of the tires, and then the poachers just run out of the car, and the car just explodes. And that's a very
That's something
quintessential
they've done
90s,
before, yeah.
where like
But it
something
never
is-
that doesn't get old, yeah.
it just was exploding for no reason.
Yeah,
Usually
that-
Hans Moleman's in the car, but
Right. That part I liked, the car exploding, but them like shooting the bees, I was just like, that was a very more
I like
late era
it
Simpsons
was more
gag.
late era because it was a little sillier.
Yeah.
I did like the close up of the bee's stinger first.
like, why couldn't it just have actually been a dart? The joke is the car exploding. Like, why have it be bees?
No, the joke's also the bees.
But the
using-
better joke is the cars exploding.
No bees! Means no,
No,
honey.
To the
To the
B-mobile.
You mean your
You mean
Chevy?
Yes. Now that's a joke. Let's just do old.
All right, let's just do it from the top. Here we go. Season 1.
Any glue
It's,
leaking?
it's me, Bart, babe. It's Christmas. It's the Christmas episode. Here we go, baby. I'm gonna sing Jingle Bells
I hope we can get a dog for Christmas
for our butts.
with a strong butt.
Butts little butt should be the name of the butt.
What's with all the butt talking?
Season 1, they talk about butts all the time. It was weird.
But whenever we do,
I think it's because they didn't say ass until season 4.
that's a good point too. No, whenever we do,
You
all
bet your
Monero
sweet
jokes-
ass.
So it turns out that it's not poachers, it's Greenpeace, and that she's, in addition to being a monkey scientist, she's also using them as slave
Running in
labor
a
for
diamond
mine.
mine, yeah.
What did you think of that?
So, I thought that was a good twist.
It definitely feels more post-classic silly. Like it's really far-fetched.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Is she just crazy? Because she's got all these diamonds, but she's still living in filth in the jungle.
Yeah,
she's not
it's
using
just
them to
bad
be-
Like,
writing.
at what point do you take the diamonds and leave and go, like, live a life of
I mean,
of
I don't
excess?
think she realized diamonds are worth money.
Yeah, she's just trying to make the chimp suffer.
She's putting them on the bottom of her shoes.
Yeah.
It's bling bling not bling bling bling. Oh gosh. But diamond. Bling. I tried to get an Oscar.
You'll get that Oscar one day, maybe for this podcast.
I grew out my hair and then I put it into a bun.
Is his hair in a bun?
His hair's in a bun?
Yeah, he wears a man bun now.
Oh,
He's
now.
famous for it, yeah.
He's famous for that.
That's what he's famous for.
He is.
Not his series of episodes on
Oh, look,
growing
that-
No,
pains.
if you talk about
That
the
model's sporting a DiCaprio.
So we just talked about how I really like the scientist line, the Swartzwelder probably scientist line from before. But then there's another one where Homer's like, "Look at me, I'm a scientist," and he's rolling in diamonds.
Yeah.
I guess the joke is like he thinks that all scientists are rich, and which
Right, when
is
they
just
are not.
famous. It's I think they also made a joke, similar joke earlier, or maybe was it last week? They made a joke about how the teachers make a lot of money. I can't remember which episode. It was one we just watched, not this one, where Homer's like, yeah, I'm sure teachers make all the money. It was probably last week when he was helicopter.
Oh, it
parent.
was. Yeah. Public school teachers.
So
make all
yeah,
that
it's
money,
a fun, it's a go-to Simpsons joke. You point out how little paid people who do righteous work.
Yeah.
It's whatever. But
They had one funny line where Bart was like, "We should check her research." What? I haven't said anything in a while.
I really like that line.
That was good.
It's a little breaking the fourth wall, but I liked it.
And then he does check the research, and it's just pictures of famous monkeys.
Yeah.
It was King Kong and Planet of the Apes.
I like that too because I love the old movie references from The Simpsons, and they picked 3 great ones: Planet of the Apes, Wizard of Oz, and King Kong.
Yep.
Just funny that they're obviously the writers, in addition to being very smart Harvard graduates, also movie buffs and pop culture buffs. So I always appreciate stuff like that.
They are paid off with diamonds to look the other way about the chimp diamond mine.
Lisa's not
and
happy
they accept
about it, but they all take the diamonds. So I guess they're very rich now, and the show ends.
Yep.
And the diamonds mysteriously vanish before the next episode
Right.
starts.
They're not rich in the next episode, presumably. And that's it. That's the end of the episode.
Like I said earlier, the joke ends with the president. The new president is their tour guide. The old president is their flight attendant, and they laugh. And it just ends with them laughing at this guy's misfortune and, in general, African instability and their long suffering. They just want to enjoy themselves, and they can't get it going.
Yep.
That whole continent is just a big shit show.
It's also kind of funny that the Simpsons are taking like thousands and thousands of dollars of diamonds out of Africa while laughing about how terrible Africa is.
Again, they're making
possibly satire, but possibly not.
Like making light of Africa is one thing because it's just a very easy, low-hanging thing to make fun of.
Yeah.
Doing it with the diamonds in your lap is almost mean-spirited.
A little bit, yeah.
And then it ends again with this weird bag boy line.
With the bag boy thing that we already talked about.
How could you exploit your beloved chimps like this?
I think we should look at her research before we condemn her entirely. I haven't said anything for a while.
So let's rank the episode.
Let's rank the episode.
So Nick, last time you were on the show, we kind of just put it in our list, which was very easy because when you were on our show, we only had 3 episodes or 4 episodes in the list. It's gotten quite harder.
Now, this is our 37th episode,
so now we have a ranking system.
We have a ranking system.
The hippo.
Don't worry, you don't have to do anything.
Our ranking system.
Great. Glad I came all the way here.
All right.
Our ranking system is afraid of water. Apparently, it's the hippo.
Yes, it's the hippo scale. The humor of the episode, the integrity, the production, and the originality of the episode. We're looking at those 4 things.
We rank it 1 to 5. You can do half points. 2.5 is average. Anything above is higher. Anything below is lower. Very rare to see 4s or 5s in this podcast because we don't cover 90s episodes and we haven't found anything close. But
so a 5 is like the best episode of Simpsons.
Yeah.
All right.
So 5 is Bart's Comet.
And what would be a good two-star one or 2?
I would some season. No, I wouldn't even say season 1. I would say all of the 90s episodes are 3 or higher.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like
what's the episode we watched with Nick? You watched our least worst episode ever for quite some time. It was our uncontested champion for the best one we watched with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, the Pokemon one. That one averaged to a little above a 3.
So you give that one gets a 3. I thought this one was better than that one.
Really?
Well, we're gonna find out because we're gonna put some time on the clock.
It was about the same, maybe.
Interestingly enough, they're from the same season.
The prison rodeo. I remember was funny.
The Michael Keaton episode Pokemon that we watched when Nick was on the show way back when in November.
6,
that was That was our season 12. Also, season 12, Homer versus Dignity.
Yeah, which is not fared as well, but it's not super far down.
I think we like it a little bit, or hate it a little bit less than a lot of. Again, I think a lot of Simpsons fans who say
it's in the bottom 13.
Yeah, I think a lot of Simpsons fans who say Homer versus Dignity and Simpson Safari and episodes like that are the worst episodes are the ones that they haven't even watched the newer ones. Like you were in that camp too.
They don't know how bad it's gotten.
Before we started this podcast, you never watched the.
No, I'd seen a few here and there, and I'd watched some that were supposedly good. I hadn't seen such lows as Lisa Goes Gaga.
We get a lot of fan emails, or not necessarily fan emails, but emails and listener responses and a lot of people say, I think you'll like this one. This episode is one of those new ones that is actually up there with the classic ones. And like, I'm open-minded. I'm not going to just shit on an episode because it's new, but I give a lot of grains of salt with it because I really don't think that even the best of the best that we've covered so far even come close to 90s episodes.
I mean, the Hard Couple, we ranked that pretty high. That's our new
We ranked it high compared to the ones we've had. I still don't think the Hard Couple is even half as good as the weakest season 5 and 6 episode.
All right, maybe we'll have to do some of those week 5 and 6 episodes. We'll see.
There aren't any. That's the thing.
I agree with you. Season 6, maybe the clip show is terrible.
Nope, even the clip show's
No,
great.
the clip show's amazing.
Yep.
All right, you talked me into it.
I'm a even harder liner. I think even season 1 and season 2 are all full of gems.
So 2 minutes on the clock or whatever.
Beep, boop, boop.
There's the clock. So here we go. The humor of this episode. What do we got? Nick, what do you think about this episode? On a scale of 0 to 5.
The humor, I'll give a 3.
Okay, that's kind of high actually.
I was thinking maybe even a 3.5 because the first the first act was very strong. The Marge, the Time magazine, the Simpsons things, but the rest of the episode's fairly weak. I'm gonna go 3 as well.
Wow, I kind of think you guys are crazy. There was a couple of things I liked. I think I'm gonna go with a 2 though.
Well,
2. Come on, with the Time magazine.
Well, I was under the impression
the
that the Pokemon one was also a 3. I thought it was on par with that in terms of humor.
I thought Pokemon was a better episode.
Pokemon, I gave a 3.
A better episode, like more original. Like I think them going to Africa, they just pulled out of their ass because it was easy.
Yeah,
all right, so let's go. I'll go 2.5. That's fine.
All right,
I'll do 2.5. That's middle of the road.
Integrity is hard to do in these because it's not really a character episode. Do you think the characters acted the way I actually said a lot of times Homer's stupidity was more classic era stupidity than "Duh, I'm an idiot."
Yeah,
I'm gonna say. Nobody's really off model here. Even Bart, like when Bart says the scientist line, the research line, he goes, "Well, I just wanted to say something." I'm gonna give this a 3.5 maybe.
I'm gonna go middle of the road. I'm gonna 2.5. This episode was just very bland to me. I don't know.
It was.
Lisa was really not on top of her game though. Normally, she would have been the expert, would have known everything about Africa. The only thing she knew about was the chimp thing, and she should have.
Well, she's 8 years old.
Being the brainiac, she would have.
Not Lisa's not actually 8 years old. You know,
she kind of knew that rhinos don't come out of eggs, but she should have known more.
She should be more versed in African politics.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point. I don't know. I mean, you say it's a bland episode. It is bland in most ways, but the integrity's not bland.
I'm digging it down to 2, actually, based on that Lisa comment.
The integrity's not bland.
This episode is not good,
You don't know
Jack.
how to
It's
rank.
very highly ranked.
You don't know how to
now.
rank. You don't
It's way
understand
too
what
high.
average means.
No.
2.5 is average.
just backpedaling for was Maggie with them in Africa? I didn't even notice.
All right, down to 1.5. You're right. I don't even remember Maggie being in this episode.
Well, she's a baby.
There could have been a lot of Maggie jokes when they're in Africa.
I'm pretty sure
0.5,
Maggie
0,
was
negative
with
5.
them. Maggie was with
Negative
them.
1.
Name one joke that had Maggie in it.
I can't, but she had to have been there.
Except for Act 1 where she ate the magazine.
She probably had a diamond in her mouth for a pacifier at the end, right? That seems like something they do.
Well, they did that in another episode. I don't remember which one it was, but they've done it before. We're way over the time on the clock.
Oh, we put an extra minute because we
Oh, okay, good. Production of the episode. It looked fine.
I would expect an episode where they go to Africa. Usually these are
Have
where
a little more panache.
Yeah, these are usually where I get the productions with the post classic episodes. That's usually where I give the most points. There's nothing impressive here. 2.5.
I'm also going to say 2.5.
Maybe even a
right
2
across the
because I'll use the Dan philosophy. Whereas it's even though it was average, it should have been better than average. So I will make it below average.
Whoa, okay. I'll
Maybe
stick with
that's
average. There was like something I did like Maggie the X-ray visual.
That's a good
funny
point.
joke.
That was good.
Some of Africa,
But it
looked
didn't
good.
have any of the great Monster Mart visuals.
No.
This Cosmo.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick 2.5. And finally, the originality of the episode.
All right, automatically loses points for being a Simpsons Goes To episode. That's lazy.
Yeah, I give it a 1.
All of the writing was lazy. It was just
Yeah.
lazy Africa references. I'm also gonna give it a 1. I think that's right.
Yeah, 1.
Okay, so we've crunched our numbers, and Simpson Safari has ranked slightly better than Goo Goo Guy Pan and slightly worse than Sex Lies and Idiot Scripts.
I'm happy with that spot because I really didn't like the Simpsons Goes to China episode, especially the Simpsons Goes to China part of the story was really lame.
Yeah.
And while this wasn't a great episode, it's certainly better than a lot of the post-season 12 that we've watched, and it was definitely better than the China episode. I think it's a fine spot for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good place for it. You guys might be outraged because this was our number 1 most voted on worst episode. It was actually tied with The Boys of Bummer, which we'll do also.
Again, it's what people suggest. They're not necessarily suggesting that this is going to be the worst episode ever. They just want us to cover it.
True. But, I think it's true what you were saying, that people who don't really watch now
they
think this is a bad episode.
I think Mike Reese says that this is the worst.
Mike Reese said this was one of the two during his whatever seasons he was on, 12 and 13 or 11 and 12, where he was the sole showrunner.
Oh, that's Mike Scully.
Oh.
No, Mike Reese from I think Mike Reese from Al Jean and Mike Reese, like the classic Simpsons writer who was the showrunner for seasons 3 and 4. And
You're right, it was Mike Reese.
He said
it's one of the two of the show's episodes that he dislikes.
This
is Mike Reese.
So,
not Mike Scully,
what I would tell Mike Reese is to please go watch The Simpsons Go to Israel, which is our worst episode ever, or watch what was
Bonfire of the Manatees.
Bonfire of the Manatees. Lisa Goes Gaga. What was the one we did last week? That one was terrible.
I forgot it.
The helicopter parenting one.
Father Knows Worse.
So I feel like Mike Reese is probably one of those ones who stopped watching after season 12 because it's much worse than this.
Yeah. So that'll do it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. Want to thank Nick for being here. Nick Noga, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for pretty much letting me keep your sound equipment at my apartment at We Studios.
This is my microphone.
We're actually in your home. We just
break in every night, every week, and record.
It really is my microphone.
I brought my own mic. If you have an episode that you would like to suggest, you can do that on our website. It's wepodcast.com. We have a forum where you can do that. And while you're there, you can click through our Amazon links. That helps us out if you just click through and shop normally. And you can also get to our Facebook, our Twitter. You can send us an email. You can do a lot of stuff. It is the most fun Simpsons podcast-related website on the internet. And if you are in the Brooklyn area, Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia is coming up. That is going to be the second Thursday of July. We're moving it from the first Thursday of July. So next week we'll be back with another episode. We're going to watch from season 15 in honor of Independence Day. We're going to watch an episode called Codependence Day. Has not gotten good, been requested a bunch, not with positive feedback. So that should be a good one. I think that's it.
Well, let's talk about
we got our cats.
We still need
more cats.
We still need some more cats, guys. So submit your cut all this. We have some for a few, but not the entire summer. And if you have submitted and haven't heard your name yet, don't worry, you will. We are using all of our cats, but we could always use more cats. So submit them.
Nick is very confused.
Nick's
Cats
very confused.
is cut all this. We're having our listeners send in submissions of themselves saying cut all this.
Which
or
is
in
also
some amusing way to close the show.
Cut all this is also something we started doing probably after you were on the
Are
show.
you saying cats?
Yes.
Cats. What did you
cut
think?
all?
Do you think I was
this.
saying like Dr. Cats?
Oh, I think you meant the animal.
Yeah, well, it's an.
We have plenty of cats, everybody.
I have two cats.
I guess that's a good point. We should be specific in case people actually do start mailing us
No,
cats.
don't mail us a cat. I already have two. It was a pain in the ass to get them to like each other.
So submit your cut all this.
Not your cats.
Yeah.
Keep the
This
cats
mailman just giving you cats like out of his mailbag.
Just like a bottomless bag of cats.
A bunch of fucking cats again.
Maybe instead of doing a cat.
Those guys gotta stop getting cats delivered to your studio.
I love this cat mailman character.
I got all these scratches from these cats. I can't deal with it. I'm running out of back team.
I got some cats for Tweaky the
For Tweaky and Twisty. Is that you? Can you sign for these cats?
You talk too much talking cat.
I mean, I'm assuming Amazon will eventually be delivering the cats via drone.
Yeah, buy your cat on Amazon.com.
A drone flying over Brooklyn with like a cat hanging over the iguanas.
Or what if they're instead they try and pass cats off as drones? Here's your drone delivery. It's just
It's
a
just
cat.
a cat with an Amazon box strapped to its back.
Cutest delivery ever.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, Amazon.
Cat
Patent
delivery.
pending. We're gonna do that.
Catazon.
Cat deliveries.
They could do that for everything. We should be sending cats into against ISIS with just bombs strapped to their backs. Oh, look at this pretty kitty. Let's let him into our cave.
I'm sorry, are we attacking Cookie Monster? Look at this little kitty.
I am ISIS.
Wasn't Isis a cat god in Egypt?
Oh, it's all coming together.
It's all inceptioning in on itself. And Leonardo DiCaprio, I starred in Inception. This is the only action movie I do. I do smart movies. So so if you've submitted a cat, that's because that's how we got started off on this roll. If you submitted a cat, basically all we need from you is 15 seconds or less, longer if you want. But we just need you to say cut all this. And if you haven't heard yourself yet, we actually have some stockpiled, and you will be heard this summer, we promise.
Yes.
But this week we're not going to use a cat submission. This week we're going to do a live cat from guest Nick Noga. So Nick Noga, feel free to wrap the show by telling us to cut all this.
So I say verbatim that I say those words.
You do whatever you want. You have full
I-
creative control. You've got the Kubrick cut on this.
To end the show?
Yeah, this is it. No pressure. No pressure at all. Just don't mess it up.
Here to play us out. No words there. No. Does anyone get what I'm doing?
Nope.
Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Nick.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
so
We'll
Nick-
do it live. Fuck it. Fucking thing sucks.
Pledging to honor the Bag Boy strike are the Brotherhood of Fruit Packers and Unpackers, the Shelf Dusters Union, and the Unattractive Waitresses of America.
Kiss my grits.
Indeed.